Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where OP's ex-girlfriend sets his house on fire. My ex-girlfriend set my house on fire, and I think I might be homeless soon. I've been with my girlfriend for 7 years now. I introduced her to my parents, and they did not approve of her. I wish at the time I had listened. In the beginning, everything was good. She was sugar and spice and everything nice. We would go on dates, come back to my place or hers, have fun, maybe watch a movie. Then she became distant. I doubt that she ever cheated because she gave me a lot of her time. I just know. She was never big into social media, so she was never on her phone, never had a reason to be on her phone. But she eventually started making more serious threats towards me, like how she's going to go upside my head. This became more and more frequent until I decided that I was going to leave and go home one night during a rare visit to her place. The next day, she came to my place to apologize, but I wasn't in the mood, so I didn't get to the door as quickly as I could. But then she started yelling at me, and that's when I felt like I shouldn't open the door. So I didn't, and she proceeds to yell at me for a good 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Next thing I know, I hear a glass shatter upstairs. She threw a rock through my second-floor window. I didn't call the police because I didn't want her to go to jail. I just cleaned up the glass, and I put a bag over my window until I could afford to replace it. I didn't want to take her to court over that because I knew she couldn't really afford to pay me back for it. I will admit that I was a sucker at the time, but I was still in love with her. However, sometime after this event, I decided I no longer wanted to be with her for separate issues, as hilarious as that probably sounds. So I set up a meeting in a publicly crowded place, and I told her exactly what I wanted to say, and I was really surprised by how she took it. She said that she was sorry for everything, and that she understood and wouldn't bother me again. I went home and kept looking out the window. I expected her to pull up at some point and that I would go outside and talk to her. Or maybe she would blow up my phone with messages saying to give her another chance. But she didn't. It wasn't until a whole month after the entire breakup that she reached out to tell me that she wanted to meet up and properly apologize. So I agreed to it because she hadn't caused any more problems at the time. She proposed a McDonald's closer to her house. She got me a milkshake and fries, but I remember after taking a few bites and sips, I suddenly had to use the restroom. My stomach was really hurting, and I had to have been in there for a good hour. And due to her own admission, this is when she set my house on fire. I was telling her how my stomach hurt, and she said we can just call it a night. She was getting tired anyway, and she said what she needed to say, and it was probably very visibly clear I had to go to the restroom. By the time I get to my house, I pass her house, seeing her car parked in her driveway on the way there, and the police are in my house. The neighbors already called the cops. The fire trucks came. She's been arrested, and I'm now couch surfing with my friends. I don't want to tell my parents about this. It's really embarrassing, and they don't know about it because they live states away. I've just been lying to them about how life is going. I don't know how much longer my friends will be so kind as to let me couch surf with them. I just feel so stupid and like I wasted so much time on this person, but most of all, I feel sad. There's already been a trial, and she admitted to burning my house down. Now I'm just trying to pick up the pieces. You may have covered this base already, but did you have insurance on your home? Regardless, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you get what you need from the trial and that you're able to move past this. Also, restraining order maybe? If she went this far, there's no telling how far she would go. OP. No insurance, but yes, she's in jail now. As a mother of grown kids, it hurts so much when your kids don't feel that they can tell you what's going on. It makes us feel that we failed our kids in some way when they can't talk to us. So get off Reddit and go call your parents. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Am I the jerk for refusing to give a donut to a kid at a party? I can't believe I'm posting this, but here we are. I have a mixed group of friends, and some are saying that I was wrong, so I decided to let Reddit decide. My husband and I were invited to a birthday party. We asked if we could bring anything, and the host said not needed, but we could if we wanted to. Since I don't like showing up empty-handed anywhere, I thought it would be nice to buy some donuts from a shop near us. We got a bunch of donuts and one gluten-free donut for my husband, who can't have gluten. Side note, no one at the party has any gluten issues. We know these people fairly well. We got to the party and set the donuts down. Immediately, this kid and his mom decided to come on over because, in her words, "These are the best donuts in town. Wow, thank you for bringing them." I open up the boxes, and immediately the kid throws his hands on the gluten-free one. I kindly said, Oh, sorry, I'm saving that one for my husband. He can't have gluten. I pick the donut out and set it aside and proceed to tell him all of the other wonderful flavors that I got. Cookies and cream, Nutella, it was donuts galore. The kid immediately starts crying because he wanted the one I took away, and his mom proceeded to begin tearing into me and yelling at me for not just giving him the donut. He's just a kid. I was stunned, and I immediately just left the situation, went outside with my husband's donut and gave it to him. I was mortified. I thought she would calm down, but no. This lady proceeds to go outside and make a scene about it. A big argument ensued about how I refused her kid a donut. It was comical at this point. I calmly stated my point again, that this donut was for my husband who is gluten-free, and I know no one there has an issue with gluten, so her kid could have one of the others. This lady wouldn't let it go. Here's where I might be the jerk. At this point, I'm sick of her entitlement, so I just told her that. She is an entitled little brat, and now I know where her kid gets it from. She starts crying, making a scene, and leaves the party. The host and everyone there is just mortified, and then tells me I should have just handed the kid the donut. My husband sticks up for me, and we decided to leave early. Not the jerk. I think you handled the situation as best you could. Kids take after their parents, and it sounds like they're an entitled family. Their lack of empathy is pathetic, and honestly, it's sad that she's being such a bad role model for her kid. Maybe she was going through something, but no adult with decent manners and respect for others would give that much of a hoot about a donut. Discipline your kid and move on. Maybe the only thing to do differently would have been to just keep the donuts separate from the beginning. But again, you already went out of your way to bring something, so it really shouldn't matter. People are so entitled nowadays, it's ridiculous. I hope your husband enjoyed the donut. Am I the jerk for accepting and refusing to return a gift from my son's girlfriend? My son, who's 23, is 5 months into dating his girlfriend, who's 22. She's a complete delight to be around, and I think we've bonded quite a bit despite the short time we've known each other. Now I have to mention here that she's very rich. My son estimates that the money she gets from her parents every month is the same as his yearly income. My son has expressed to me several times that he's worried it might look like he's only dating her for her money. So he's been really strict about things like paying his share of things and not accepting expensive gifts from her. Yesterday was my birthday, and his girlfriend got me a very expensive designer handbag that I had mentioned being excited about months ago, even though I could never afford it on my own. I'm so touched that she remembered a short comment I made so long ago. I told my son about it, and he became very angry at me. Said he's had to refuse so many gifts, outings, and vacation plans since they've been dating because he can't stand her thinking he's into her money. And here I am, happily accepting the first gift she got me. He demanded that I return it immediately or I'll disturb the dynamic of their relationship. I refused, and I told him it's such a thoughtful gift, even not considering the price, and she'll be hurt if I return it. Now he's saying I'm greedy and don't care that I'm making him out to look like a gold digger whose family is happy to mooch off her. Not the jerk. I get he's trying to not come across as a gold digger, which I totally understand, but that's something he decided for himself to do. But it's a thoughtful gift meant for you, hence it's up to you to accept it or not. Personally, I don't like rejecting gifts, especially the first gift. The first gift is always a memorable moment. She went out of her way to get you something she knew you'd like, and I think that's very kind of her. I think a way to compromise is to accept the gift and let her know how appreciative you are that she remembered how much you liked that bag, but that she doesn't need to spend so much on future gifts, as any gift is a nice gift, no matter the price. What's interesting is that him refusing so much may actually come back to bite him, especially since he's even refusing to go along with vacation plans. After a while, the girlfriend may decide she wants to be with someone who will want to go on those vacations with her, as opposed to someone who will just keep letting his insecurities get in the way. Yes, too much turning down nice things she wants to do with him is hurtful to the fun and joy of a relationship. If the money aspect were reversed, he'd feel differently, most likely because he's the guy. It would seem normal to want to treat her since he really likes her, and affording it is no problem. Spouse's entitled friend insists on staying with us and being chauffeured around everywhere. My spouse's childhood friend announced a year ago that they were coming to our country and intended to stay with us. We tentatively said okay. Recently, we found out that my mother requires a significant medical procedure, will be hospitalized for a few days to a week, and recovering with us after. The three of us lived together as roommates, with bills split equally essentially. This procedure falls smack dab into the middle of spouse's friend's trip. I told my spouse to tell their friend about the circumstances and that this would severely impact any sightseeing plans we had, and I would be out for the duration of the trip between work and taking care of my mom. My spouse's friend, despite driving for many years in their home country, did not want to drive while here and expected us to ferry them around. I had hoped that, like most normal people, the friend would pick up on the fact that this is not a good time to visit and make alternate arrangements, such as driving a car. But instead, they said, "Well, as long as I get to see X while I'm here, I'm fine." I should probably explain that my spouse is a very new driver and just got their license a month ago and has very little experience driving on the freeways. And they're still very terrified of these. I do most of the driving as a result while they're getting comfortable. Said friend arrived on Monday, and since then, expected to be picked up from the airport, a 2-hour drive each way, and my spouse, the new driver, had to drive in horrific traffic to get them. I was busy with appointments for my mom and work. Did not offer gas money to my spouse for driving all that way to get them. Expects to be driven to sightsee every day, again, never offers to pay for gas money or pay for anything. When in our house, has the TV up loud in the one room I enjoy hanging out in. Doesn't pick up after themselves, has not offered to pay for a single meal, does not even pay for their own meals or drinks. When taken to sightsee, they never say thank you and even complain about one place my spouse took them to. Takes long showers without even asking if we need the bathroom before. Does not offer to help with anything in the house, refuses to arrange for their own sightseeing, and is entirely dependent on my spouse. Lectures my spouse on the politics and social norms of our country, despite the fact that my spouse has lived here for 4 years and knows more than said friend does. Friend is a total social drain to be around and only wants to talk about themselves and their thoughts and complaints. Friend has not once said thank you to us for hosting or driving or paying for their meals. Friend is staying for 13 days total, all with us, all with the expectation of us driving them around. I have social anxiety, my spouse knows this, and have had to give up my 2 favorite spaces in the whole house so the friend has a place to sleep and a place to hang out when they're not in the bedroom. I work from home and had to relocate my work setup to another part of the house, which was and is a major inconvenience as work is crazy right now and I'm having to balance taking care of my mom with that. The last 6 days have been horrible and I feel like I have no peace in my own home, especially after a long day of having to be social while working and then having to continue that because of the house guest. The next 6 days will also be horrible as this friend simply will not take a hint and I've got the stress of dealing with my parent who's having a procedure. I've talked to my spouse and they agree that the friend is a drain. They're not happy either, but they're trying to stick it out until the friend leaves and have already said that the friend will not be allowed to stay here again. It's clear to me that the friend is massively taking advantage of my spouse and I hate to see it. I'm just flabbergasted that people like this even exist, as every other house guest we've ever had has been considerate, occupies themselves, arranges for their own transportation, and genuinely seems to care about us. This friend is one of the most entitled people I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. And just to clarify a few things, I'm not paying for anything for the friend. I put my foot down. My spouse is paying for his own funds. I told my spouse that I thought their friend should make an alternate arrangement and that I was in no place mentally or emotionally to have someone staying with us. I told my spouse that at the very least, friend needs to drive themselves, not put all that burden on spouse, and I really need my spouse to be there to support me at the hospital. I did try to cancel his friend coming here, but it all fell on deaf ears. I'm flabbergasted you would let this happen in the first place. Why wouldn't you cancel the trip when your mom got sick? At the very least, confront them about sponging off you and tell them you will need them to kick up some money for the second week of their stay. Print out some self-guided walking tours of your city and point this person to the nearest bus or tram stop. Remember, people, no one can take advantage of you unless you let them. Today I messed up by accidentally having a framed picture of my electrician on my nightstand. This story starts a little over 2 years ago on New Year's Eve of 2022. I celebrated with a few of my closest friends and my best friend's cousin, and at the end of the night, we took a nice Polaroid photo. It turned out to be one of the last pictures I had of one of my friends before he passed, so I decided to put it in a nice frame that I keep on my nightstand, alongside a bigger picture of me and my girlfriend. In the photo itself, there's me, my girlfriend, my 3 best friends, and the aforementioned cousin. Now, I had nothing against the guy. He seemed nice enough, but I had met him like 3 times in total, so it didn't exactly feel appropriate to have a picture of him next to my pillow. Given that he was the last on the right in the photo, it was easy enough to just put the photo in the frame in such a way that he's entirely hidden behind it. Except that one time when she cleaned our room, my girlfriend moved the photo to the other side, so he was the only one sticking out of the frame. Because we are both mentally 12, we found this idea of having a framed photo of a random dude in our bedroom very funny, so it became a bit of a running joke for her to keep doing it when I wasn't expecting it. Now for the mistake. A few days ago, I needed to install a new lamp, and my best friend recommended his cousin. So the dude shows up to my house, and I show him to the bedroom where I wanted the lamp installed. He comes in, we do a bit of small talk, and then suddenly he goes kind of quiet. It is then that I realize that he's looking straight at my nightstand, the nightstand on which there's a framed picture of him. To make matters worse, I decided to give him an explanation, and since I thought the truth wasn't believable enough, I made up one on the spot. I told him that I put that picture there to remember what he looked like when I picked him up from the bus station, in a frame next to my bed, as one does. I don't think he bought it. He did his job and left like 6 days ago, and I still can't stop thinking about what an idiot I am. Am I the jerk for telling my husband to stop helping my neighbor and her son? About 5 years ago, my neighbor Jane kept walking over to our house and sending me messages asking for help for her son to learn to snowboard from my husband. Jane's husband wasn't interested in helping, and she kept telling me how great it was that my husband would snowboard with my son. At one point, she asked if my husband, her, and her son could go snowboarding together. I put my foot down and said absolutely not. Fast forward a number of years later, and her son is now 16. She again asked for help buying a new snowboard, and my husband is nice and went and helped her and her son purchase one. She then started texting him, asking if she could go with my husband and my son and her son snowboarding the next weekend. My husband said that was fine. However, my son decided not to go last minute because he wanted to just spend time with my husband. My husband didn't know that, but I did. My husband spent the day with Jane and her son, even after me telling him that I wasn't happy about him going and that he should cancel, but he said he already told her that he would and didn't want to flake. She texts him during work hours. He replies and has relentless questions and asks when's the next time they can go snowboarding. I told my husband to stop texting her and he can't go with her anymore. It's making me uncomfortable. Note, her husband is around and did go with them to purchase the snowboard, but doesn't have the time to spend with them on the weekends, so she wants my husband to go help them and show them the ropes. He's one of those people that likes to help others. However, I told him to ghost her. He said it's going to be weird when he sees her in the neighborhood, and what is he supposed to say when he sees her? I told him to tell her that he's just too busy. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Point out to your husband that his desire to help is alienating his son. He didn't check if his son wanted the neighbors to come along. It's not your husband's job to make up for her husband being unable to spend weekends with them. OP. My husband is clueless and thought our son wanted to go to help them too. My husband does go snowboarding quite a bit, sometimes with my son and sometimes alone. But I don't like her tagging along. It's not like I told her he wanted to help her. I just think this is wrong when we are married and she's a woman who's not happy with the attention she gets from her husband, obviously. Thank you. He's not clueless. He enjoys her attention too and pretends he's just a good neighbor. She likes him. Ain't no way in heck this lady got her own dang husband and needs yours for this. She needs to go find a snowboarding instructor. And it's great that your husband is nice and all, but the heavenly gates will not refuse to open for him if he doesn't give this weird neighbor lady and her son assistance with snowboarding. My stepdaughter ruined my house, so now I'm getting revenge. I, 43 female, and my husband, who's 47, we've been married for 4 years now. We both have kids from our previous marriages, which includes our 12 and 10-year-old sons, and O, who's 18, daughter. My husband and I dated for 3 years prior to getting married, but we all moved in together 2 years ago. O lives with us full-time, and it had a bit of a rocky start with mine and O's relationship, but we managed to push through it. I told O from day one that I wasn't her mom, but if there was anything she wanted to talk about or that she needs, she can come to me. After a few months, we became quite close, and she talked to me about anything she was too embarrassed to talk with her dad about. Recently, O has been trying to make friends at college since she just started in the spring. On-campus residence is very expensive for the college, and it's close to our house, so O decided to stay at home. That's not a problem. The problem is that O keeps bringing her friends over to hang out, but leaving it a mess. Normally, it's not a major deal. I have OCD, so sometimes there are issues depending on the situation though. Because she picks up after herself, but I recently hired a housekeeper to clean the house once a week since I've been working overtime more often, and me and my husband just don't have the time to do it. It's expensive, but I can't stand it when it becomes too messy for me, so I think it's worth it. This time, she brought her friends over after the house was cleaned, and I guess they decided not to take their shoes off and walked all around the house leaving footprints. They also made pizza from scratch and left the crumbles on the counters, among other things. They pretty much made the entire house filthy before I could even get home. Once again, the cleaning service is quite expensive because I like it a higher level of cleaning quality, so I was ticked off. My husband is trying to make me let it go because O has always struggled to make friends, but I can't let it go because of how much it cost. I requested the exact amount I paid for the cleaning service to her Venmo, and she acted all confused on why she had to pay for it. I explained that her and her friends ruined my house that was just cleaned, but she insisted it wasn't her. I have a Ring camera, and I have video proof of her and her friends going into the house, and they were the only ones home that day before me. I gave her two choices: pay for the damages or I stop paying for her phone. She's complaining, saying it wasn't her, and she doesn't have the money to pay for the phone bill. Am I the jerk? Edit to clear up confusion. The cleaners came before O, fully cleaned the house, then left, and an hour later, O came in with her friends. Footprints in your house and pizza crumbs do not make a house filthy. You had plenty of options other than charging your stepdaughter. You could have cleaned it. Your husband could have cleaned it. You could have asked her to, etc. You're the jerk. Telling your stepdaughter she ruined your house is a sure way to ruin your relationship with her. You're the jerk for calling your house ruined for a fairly easily cleanable mess. She should have cleaned it because you're not the one who usually disciplines, and this is obviously an issue for you, and between the two of you, you should have told her father to enforce that. Of course, her friends should have taken their shoes off. Of course, your stepdaughter needs to clean up after herself and her friends, but she's not a jerk for living and sometimes leaving a mess. Ruined implies actual damage. A mess is a mess, not damage. You're overreacting. You're the jerk. There's nothing wrong with crumbs on the counter. My counter has more crumbs than I know what to do with. You know why? Because that's what happens when you have kids. Same goes for footprints. Unless you're one of those psychos that makes people take off their shoes every time they step foot into your house, you're gonna wind up with some footprints here and there. Big whoop. You sound insufferable, and if I were your daughter, I would do so much more to your precious house just to tick you off. Am I the jerk for making my niece clean and cook to teach her respect? I'm a stay-at-home mom by choice, and my husband works 2 jobs to make that possible for me. Due to his 2 jobs, the majority of housekeeping and cooking is my responsibility. My husband spends extra time with the kids and taking care of them when he's off, or has an hour or 2 of downtime, and does stuff around the house on his off time. We're happy with this arrangement, and it works for us. My niece, Jenny, who's 20, female, is staying with us while she's in college. The only expenses she has is her own food if she doesn't want to eat what we make, her car, and her gas, so she works part-time. She does not like our arrangement at all. Jenny is constantly on about how my husband needs to be doing more around the house and taking care of his kids. I've told her that his contribution is working so that I can pursue staying home, but she doesn't listen and has told both of us that it needs to be 50-50 with housekeeping and the kids. My husband for the most part ignores her. He told her one time he does what he can when he can and hasn't entertained her pestering since. It got to a point I told Jenny she either needs to respect our dynamic, not agree with, just respect, or that she would need to figure out a different living arrangement. A couple days ago, my husband got home early, around 11:30 p.m. He wanted to play some games to unwind before we went to bed. He asked if I moved his console. We were looking for it when Jenny came up from the basement and said that she had his console and would give it back once he actually helped around the house so I could get a break. We got his console back after telling her we will not tolerate stealing in our house and told her we'd figure out what to do about her by the morning. We decided to give her one last chance before kicking her out. We asked what all she thought he should be doing around the house, and she told us. And we then told her that she would be responsible for all of those tasks, minus childcare for the week. We sent our oldest to my parents, and for the first 4 days, if it was on that list, I didn't do it. Some mess accumulated, and meals didn't get made 2 out of those 4 days. Jenny complained that she couldn't do everything with her studies and job, but I told her I didn't want to hear it since she expected my husband to do it. The 5th day, Jenny left to stay with a friend, and I got a call from my sister. She feels what we did was cruel and too far since Jenny was just trying to stand up for her aunt. I told her I didn't need Jenny standing up for me. What I needed was for her to respect how my husband and I run our household and not always have a go at him. She wants us to let Jenny come back and drop the cleaning lesson, but I told her no way since she did steal from my husband over this. My own parents are now backing my sister. Were we wrong to have Jenny do housework to make a point? Edit. To the people who are concerned and keep telling me to call a crisis helpline, please buzz off. You're the jerk. Just because your husband sits on his butt all day in an air-conditioned office browsing the internet and talking down to low-paid employees does not give him the right to come home and play video games until it's time to go to sleep. Your niece is 100% right, and it's so sad that you can't see that. Looks like your husband has you brainwashed into his outdated beliefs, and your niece is just trying to get you to wake up from your delusion. This story honestly breaks my heart. Why should all of the childcare or house chores be your responsibility when your husband benefits just as much from a clean house as you do? You're the jerk. I'm sorry, but your niece is correct. This isn't the 50s anymore, and fathers can't get by doing the bare minimum at home just because they have some basic job they do. It's been proven time and time again that stay-at-home moms have it much harder than any father who spends his days goofing off in the workplace. You have to take the kids to school and pick them up, cook breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, etc. Basically be a 24/7 babysitter, and all he has to do is go to work, clock in, and talk to his idiot friends all day. I hope you realize how wrong you are, and don't be surprised when niece goes no contact with you. Not the jerk. What is it with you people here on Reddit? If the dynamic works for them, why can't you just agree to disagree and be happy for OP that her family is happy, healthy, and safe? She said that her husband works 2 separate jobs so that she can be what she'd like to, which is a stay-at-home mom. If that's what makes her happy and it works for them, where's the harm in it? Sometimes I feel like many of you are so anti-tradition that it warps your mind into something that is very broken, to say the least. My fiance refuses to add my name to the house he owns. My fiance, 28 male, and I, 26 female, started dating 3 years ago, and I can't wait to be with him for the rest of my life, but I think I might have messed up. We got engaged 3 months ago and are planning on getting married in November, and last night we were discussing some things about the wedding and the topic of our financial plan for once we're married, which is where the argument started, because I asked him when I would be added onto the deed for the house. Background. When my fiance was 23, his uncle passed and left him a huge inheritance, which has basically set him up for life, especially since he doesn't like super flashy things and only really spends money on his hobbies. And for the first 2 years after this, he struggled to date because he was always worried the girl he was dating was using him. I moved in with fiance a year into our relationship, and he has never charged me for any bills and only expects me to pay for luxury items that I want. 9 months ago, me and my fiance had a discussion in which he asked me if I wanted to stop working because I worked as a teacher and he could tell that my work wasn't making me happy, which he was right. We came to the agreement that I would stop working and some ground rules. The ground rules include that he would give me allowance every month and that he expected me to not just sit at home all day on my phone because he wants me to find hobbies and passions because we both don't want kids. I was totally on board with the rules, and quitting really helped my mental health. So when I brought up having my name added to the house deed, he got really quiet. He told me that he didn't feel comfortable adding my name to the deed as the house had been fully paid off by him before we had even met, and he felt that he is the one responsible for all the payments. This made me upset because I thought he was trying to say that I was using him and we're getting married, so I thought the house would become ours. He told me that things will become ours, but this was the first house he ever bought and that he wanted to keep something for himself. He told me that if we decide to change houses or have one built, which we have discussed before, that he would have both of our names on the deed. This made me more upset Because if he's willing to do it on the possible next house, why can't he do it for our current house? We got into an argument and I left to go to my sister's apartment and texted my friend about the situation, and she told me that I was being a jerk and overreacting. But I don't see it that way, and I think he should be willing to put my name on the deed. Am I overreacting and throwing away a good relationship, or is he being a jerk by not seeing my side? You are not the jerk. Once you get married, regardless of job situation or the fact that the house was bought and paid for before you and him got together, you have every right to ask to be on the deed. What if, God forbid, something happens to him? You're potentially left without the house and access to it, especially if there are other family members he may have promised it to or have a current will to. If tables were turned, he'd expect that you add him. He's the one that pushed you to leave your teaching job. It doesn't need to be done until after you're married. I think you should get your own source of income, however, because if something were to happen to him, you're likely not going to get a dime out of the situation. Not the jerk. A marriage is supposed to be a union, two becoming one. What's his is yours, and what's yours is his. There's an unhealthy power imbalance here with your current situation. His giving you an allowance every month is giving him all the power in the relationship. You are completely dependent on him, and this sets up the possibility for a horrible dynamic. I would very much rethink your relationship. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.